Hey guys, it's Mrs. Benson again. So I'm just going to read the epilogue. If you remember the prologue I read at the start of the story, pro generally means before, and the epilogue gives you information about the characters after the story ends. So the epilogue will kind of tell us what happens to Frank and Judy once they got home and were living in Portsmouth, England. So epilogue, it's called Africa, so they must do some moving. Frank and I were a man and a dog of the world, and we soon became restless at home in England because they both were so used to traveling. Then in 1948, Frank had a chance to travel to Africa for work. The first thing he did was check to make sure I could go along. When he got a yes, we made our plans. We got on an airplane, my very first plane ride, and flew to Tanganyika. Today it is known as Tanzania, a country in Africa. So remember, England is here. Here's the United Kingdom or England. And Africa is this big country or this big continent here. And they are going to Tanzania, which I am guilty of not knowing exactly where that is. So let's see if we can find it. Tanzania. Right here. So here's Tanzania. So they have to go all the way from England by plane to Tanzania. All right. We spent our days in Frank's Jeep, traveling from plantation to plantation and village to village for Frank's work. He was working with local farmers to cultivate crops like peanuts in the areas of Africa that were still part of Great Britain. So Great Britain had power over or had governed certain areas in Africa yet. My favorite thing to do was explore the bush. Africa had a lot of snakes and elephants like the ones I had seen in Sumatra, but there were new animals here I had never seen or smelled before, like lions and giraffes. The baboons reminded me too much of Mickey the monkey from the beginning of the story, so I did my best to avoid them. We had been in Africa for a couple of years when something surprising happened. I was 14 years old by then. That's pretty old for a dog, and moving a little more slowly than I was used to, or than I used to. One day I was out roving in the bush when I got lost. I didn't understand why. It had never happened before. But when dark came, I couldn't find my way home. Before I knew it, there was a lion on my trail, and I had to race away from it. And then I was even more turned around. There was no trace of Frank's scent, no trace of home. It took me a long time to find any humans at all. I limped into a village a few days after I got lost. I knew Frank was looking for me, but I didn't know how to let him know where I was. My age made me too tired to search for him. Luckily, Frank found me a couple of days after that and carried me home. I felt okay after a bath, a big meal, and a good sleep. But a couple of nights later, on February 16th, I woke up with a terrible pain. Frank tried to comfort me, but I could hardly walk. So Frank carried me in his arms once again, this time to the doctor. I had surgery to remove a tumor that was causing the pain, but then an infection set in. Frank came to sit with me with tears streaming down his cheeks. I knew what that meant. I had said goodbye to too many friends over the years. This would be the hardest one of all. I licked his hand. Goodbye, my friend. Then I fell asleep in the arms of my most special human. I was buried in my Royal Air Force jacket, the one that matched Frank's. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. So that's a really long life for a dog, 14 years. And boy, did Judy have adventures. She was a dog that saw so many different things. So that was really a sad ending, but, an appropriate ending for such a sweet dog. Um, the other part that they have on here is called a historical note. Judy was a real dog who became the only animal to become an official prisoner of war during World War II. Although it's impossible to know what she was really thinking and feeling, all of the events in this novel really happened to the English pointer born in Shanghai in 1936. Everyone who knew Judy said she had a remarkable ability to sense when danger was near. Somehow she knew the difference between who was an enemy and who was a friend even before she spent any time with them. And she was able to tell the difference between Japanese planes and ships and those of friendly countries, which is pretty amazing. Many men who suffered as prisoners of war alongside Judy credit the dog with helping them stay alive. Not only did she distract guards from beatings and supply whatever food she could, Judy reminded the men of home. She lifted their spirits and gave them a reason to hang on. Of course, not all of the men made it. An estimated 677 of the 6,000 POWs sent to work on the Death Railway died in Sumatra. The war took the lives of many, many more men and women and children from all over the world. Almost every country on earth took part in World War II. The United States, Great Britain, the Soviet Union, China, and other countries were on one side. They were called the Allies, which we talked about. Germany, Japan, and the countries that supported them were on the other, and they were called the Axis powers. The war between the Allied countries and the Axis powers lasted from September 1939 until August 1945, which is just about 6 years. Many other animals took part in the war, helping their militaries, just as Judy helped her men. So that's pretty fascinating. And then you can go through and you can look at all the different pictures of the real Judy. And then at the end, if you enjoyed this story, there's further reading that you can do about Judy and Frank. And then there's also another GI Dog story. So it's a series of 2 books. So if you liked GI Dog's Prisoner of War, you can also check out the other GI Dog story, and you can find that online. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed getting to read to you each chapter. Remember, school is important, but it's also important during this time when you're not in school to get outside, get some fresh air, hang out with your family, make time to do some fun things. And we hope to see you really soon because we miss you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.